to Culture Binge, the Wisecrack podcast, where we get involved with all things cultural zeitgeist related. I am Michael, joined by Wisecrack Overload Extraordinaire. Overlord. Shit. I'm going to say that again. I'm Michael, joined by Wisecrack, a man at the top, Alec. How are you doing today, Alec?
I'm great. I forgot to turn on my light. I'm going to do that.
Wow. And joined by the woman with a new microphone and lots to say, Serby. Serby, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Great. It's good to hear you loud and clear. Excited to be here. A lot of great stuff to talk about today. I'm always excited, but today's topic list is just fantastic. So we're going to talk about cult leaders, maybe give you some advice if that's something you're interested in getting involved with. We're going to talk about dating during COVID. This is going to be very interesting. And of course, we would love to hear what anyone has to say about this. And then we'll talk about how boomer parents created millennial burnout. So for anyone who wants to blame your problems on your parents, hopefully we can give you some fuel to do that. But for the time being, let's get started with some slaps and chaps. So Serby, let's get started with you. What are your slaps and chaps this time around?
So what slaps is Greg Edwards slaps. For those of you who don't know, Greg Edwards is the comedian who plays Sparky Sweets, PhD, in Wisecrack's Thug Notes. I just learned that Greg is an artist and he's really talented.
Yeah.
I looked at his website and really great stuff. It's gregedwardsart.com. He has a Black Flag series that he just came out with. It's so great.
That's awesome. Actually once purchased, it used to be on that wall, but I think we moved it. But he has these cool, they're like artists like Basquiat or like rappers like Jay-Z, superimposed over like redline maps of like the cities they grew up in. Redlining is like a mortgage policy where they wouldn't give mortgages to like black people outside of specific areas to enforce segregation and stuff like that. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, really great. So gregedwardsart.com. Check it out. Chaps? Everything has chapped. Last couple of weeks have been kind of hard. Aww. So just felt kind of blue.
Well, we're sorry.
Yeah, that was a downer no. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, but we're sorry. And we know that everyone in the Culture Binge family is sorry. And we hope things start turning around because you deserve a life full of all slaps, no chaps.
Thank you.
Yes, it's true. Alec, how about you? Slaps and chaps.
The vow slaps. I'm not going to say any more. It's my topic, so I'm not going to cheat. But what chaps is that in 7-ish days, I won't get to send Jared dumb memes and be like, hey, man, can we make a video about this? And that makes me sad.
You're going to have to send yourself dumb memes to say, hey, man, can we make a video about this?
Really? I'm going to send you dumb memes, and I'm going to say, can we make a video about this? And you're going to be like, I don't know, man. You get to decide that shit. And I'll be like, why aren't you Jared?
I think you're being too idealistic. I think now you're the person who's going to shoot down the ideas and dreams of people like myself who send you things saying, can we make a video of this? And you just say, no.
Like Twister. But also, I want someone to shoot down my dreams. Everyone needs someone to shoot down their dreams because lots of dreams are dumb, everyone. PSA.
I'll shoot him down.
Wow, we're really starting off on a positive note. All your dreams are dumb. Okay, well, those are good slaps and chaps. So my slap will be the American Ninja Warrior came back. I have talked about it before. I mentioned this, but they're doing a bubble season. It's in St. Louis. All the athletes are in a contained space. It's incredible. Just like the NBA, they've managed to capture the thrill and drama of America's greatest future pastime without losing anything. If you don't already watch it, NBC, Monday nights. It's great. Just record it so you can fast forward through some of the personal interest stuff, but it's fantastic. Chaps, less sad than the past two. I'm hitting a bit of a recipe dead end. I've been cooking, every day, sometimes 2 meals a day for over 6 months now, and I've started to get sick of recipes that I'm like cycling back through. So this week I realized that I did order a new cookbook, but I'm lacking inspiration. So if anyone knows good recipes or has ideas, let me know.
I've been making a lot of Thai food lately.
I love Thai food.
Like curry. Have you made like green, yellow, or red, any of the curries?
Name a color. I've made the curry.
Have you done pad thai?
I have made pad thai, yeah.
Oh, wow. You've gone through everything.
Sometimes I struggle with Thai, though, because I think to myself, I could make Thai tonight. Or, because I live a mile and a half from Thai town, I could just go pick up really good Thai food.
Yeah.
And it makes me
talking
lazy
about triangulation.
Yes. Oh, no. No. I don't live anywhere near any neighborhood that's called Thai town. I live in Nevada. Nevada is where I live. Okay, so
well, hold on. My slaps was almost an eggplant torta I made this week. You should fry some eggplant, put it on like a good like nice bun. I did brioche, which is not the traditional torta. Put some avocado, put some sauce, some roasted red pepper. It'll be real good.
that sounds delicious. I had this eggplant al pastor thing at a restaurant in Chicago a year ago that I liked a lot. It was a good use of eggplant Mexican food. But sorry for making anyone hungry who's listening to this, but if you're in the chat, let us know what you're making or what you feel like making or what we should make. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is cults and the vow and all the good that you can find through joining up with some like-minded people and paying money to be involved. So, Alec, the ball is in your court.
So HBO's Vow, maybe you haven't seen it. It's about a multi-level marketing company called NXIVM. That's spelled NXIVM and they've been around for 20 years. So they were chopping off letters and making shit weird before it was officially cool to do so. What do you two know about it? I think you know, Michael. Serby, do you know about NXIVM?
Yeah, I think I talked about it before.
Okay.
It was like they do like it's like the sex cult with the branding on the bodies.
Yeah,
Okay.
Serby nailed it. So NXIVM, multi-level marketing, they run an executive success program. It's kind of like Trump University met Herbalife. You know, it's mixing like these classes about how to succeed in life with, you know, an actual pyramid scheme. But most notably, as Serby mentioned, a part of NXIVM basically became an instrument for Keith Raniere, the founder, to create a sex cult. People would be branded with his initials. He was running it with this actress named Allison Mack, who was on Wilfred, which is a great show, by the way. She was also on Smallville, I think.
I forgot she was on Wilfred. Oh my God.
Yeah, I need to finish Wilfred. I never did, but it was very good. So, as I mentioned, all documented in The Vow on HBO. Everyone should go check it out. It's very good if you have access to HBO. But what I actually want to talk about here is Keith Raniere. You know, in the documentary, they really talk about how he's like the smartest man on earth. Apparently, he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for like scoring really high on this unsupervised test that has since come under a lot of scrutiny, and you know, still somehow ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records for it. But he really likes to wax poetic and philosophical about things. Also, a lot of what he does seems like kind of like therapy with different words. And you know, between like psychology and the philosophy, I was like, I need to, because I'm a weirdo. I wasn't just like, wow, this guy is a weird sex cult leader. I was like, oh, I wonder like what his philosophy is like. And I haven't dug too much in, but there's some really great moments in there. Like one thing that really struck me is he's talking to someone I think in his sex cult, about like his definition of hell. And that definition of hell is that when you die, you meet the version of yourself you could have been. And I mentioned this to Michael off the podcast, but it's like a weird rhetorical spin on like Nietzsche's amor fati. Like it's an idea that I'm like, oh, that's kind of like not the worst idea. Like, sure, it's poetic and whatever, but it's not that different from Nietzsche, who believed that you should live a life and look back at all your choices and be able to sort of affirm them. But anyway, the thing that really gets me is kind of something I see in a lot of places besides places like NXIVM, and the sex cult branch of it, but like a weird weaponization of stoicism and also like mindfulness. And so to sort of set this up a little bit, stoicism, ancient Greek philosophy, there was one notable stoic, there were many, this guy named Epictetus was born a slave. And he kind of came out of the whole experience with the Stoic philosophy that is probably, many of you are not strangers to, basically the ability to distinguish between the things that you can and can't control, right? Like I can control my reaction to something, I can control my mood, I can control my desires, but I can't control what other people are doing. I can't control my external circumstances. In his case, he literally could not control that he was a slave. And so I think a lot of self-help, sort of, whether they're reading about Epictetus or not, they're really sort of appropriating this idea as a vehicle for change. And, you know, stoicism is fine, but again, I think it's sort of stretched out in a way. And on the other side of things, there's mindfulness, which a very similar thing. You know, if you're stressed, if you're chronically stressed, you know, really be mindful of your thoughts and feelings. Those are the things you can control, not outside of them. And so Raniere uses this for all kinds of bonkers shit, and just NXIVM at large. And listening to The Dream is a Wonderful podcast that has a whole season about MLMs, and this sort of thing also comes up there. But it's like, if you're not recruiting enough people into his cult, oh, well, you can't change what other people are doing. Only like focus on yourself. All you can do is be the best version of yourself. So if you're not recruiting people in this cult, like really it's your fault. Of course, there's other factors in there that he doesn't want you to think about. Like there's lots of press about how he has sex slaves, or he ran another multi-level marketing firm and had to pay a $40,000 fine because it was alleged to be a pyramid scheme. When it becomes sex cult time in The Vow, the same sort of thing comes up where these people are living this very like ascetic lifestyle where they're restricting their calorie intake to get skinnier so they can be more appealing to him, but also like they set goals for themselves. They don't get into specifics, but maybe it's not eating junk food or not checking Instagram, but it's all about like the self-mastery kind of in the Stoic tradition. That's like, I need to be the master of my own self via being a slave to somebody else. And so the obviously weaponization of this comes into, oh, if I'm branding you, the only thing you can control, like pain is an illusion, like in the Buddhist sense, the only thing you can control is your reaction to it. And so I think it's really interesting, not only because Keith Raniere is like misusing these, or not even misusing them, sort of weaponizing these concepts, but I think it's a lot of things. We've talked about mindfulness, how it's sort of weaponized to say like, hey, don't worry about the workload we're putting on you. All you can control is your reaction to it. So why don't you do this meditation exercise instead of asking for a raise, sort of stuff. So I don't know, Burns, I believe you watched it. What do you, and Serby also, what do you think about this?
I mean, I've watched it almost every episode, I think twice now, except the last one, because I had to rewatch it with someone who was slacking. But I'm nice like that. I mean, one of the weirdest things about watching The Vow is the first episode, part of the way through, I was like, I get this.
Yeah.
Especially when they get into this idea of limiting beliefs. This thing where, like, things that we can't do in life or things we struggle with come down to limiting beliefs we have that constrain our like view of ourselves and our potentials. And I was like, oh, totally, I get that. If I was in a room where someone taught me that, I would think that is cool.
The other thing though is like that is like a thing you learn in cognitive behavioral therapy. And so like they put like weird terms on these things that are like evidence-based. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And it was interesting to learn that Nancy Salzman, who we call, what is she, the rector?
Proctor.
Vanguard and Proctor, yeah. So this is the educational director of sorts of the organization. Nancy has a background as a hypnotist, so she has brought in mind control techniques basically to these people. But I think that the doc does a good job of slowly unfolding how rational people could get involved in these things. And I think that's really important because a lot of docs or explorations of cults are just like, oh, these idiots that had issues at home who were runaways or whatever got sucked into this evil thing. And in The Vow, you see a lot of people where you're like, wow, she was in Star Wars movies. Why would this person need to get sucked up into this? But then the thing, I've can't stop thinking about as I watch it is it's a lot of the people that got drawn into NXIVM were like actors and performers. Mm-hmm. And it seems like they initially get pulled in to help them with their craft, but then they stop doing their craft. So I love how cults do this thing where like I sign up for self-improvement so I can do better at auditions and booking roles. But what self-improvement looks like is giving up my career altogether to help other people learn how to self-improve.
Well, that's the pyramid scheme thing.
Yeah.
Like the thing about pyramid schemes with like physical products, say it's like vitamins, is that there's no real external market for it. There's not. The difference between a pyramid scheme and a real business is like, oh, I'm going to sell you these vitamins and you're a regular consumer of vitamins taking a regular amount of vitamins. It becomes a pyramid scheme when your main consumer is other people buying vitamins to sell them. And so
that's what I think, yeah.
But yeah, there is no external, or the external market of people, actual actors who are going to use these skills is like very, very limited. Really, like the best way to use it is to recruit more people to take this executive class.
Well, and I'll end with this. Like, I think that's what's so brilliant about NXIVM. It's obviously bad. It's sex cult branding, not good. But the brilliance of it as a model is what they're selling is kind of like a spiritual practice. So mm-hmm. I think a lot of people can see through, no, Shannon, I'm not going to buy your dumb vitamins. But when you're offering like a way of life, and there's the guy, is it Chippy? What's his name?
Oh, his name is Nippy?
Nippy, yeah. So Nippy at one point, a character in the show, talks about how he wanted to make the world a better place. And he says something like, well, if you want to be a person that makes the world better, you're going to get involved in politics? Like, no, those are corrupt systems. What are you going to go to religion? A thing that we've seen how corrupt that can be. So this idea that it appeals to people who want to self-improve in a pseudo-philosophical religious way, it offers that space. And I think that's the sort of sick genius of the NXIVM cult.
Serby?
So I feel very uncomfortable with cults at baseline, but also because I have family members who are in a cult.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And
I didn't know this.
yeah. And so it's the same sort of thing. Like it starts out like they make it seem like, oh, it's like a social thing. Like we're all just going to get together. And when you're retired and you have nothing really to do, it seems like, oh, okay, yeah, that's nice. Like hang out with some other old people. And then it slowly turns into, oh, well, you should like donate some money. And then you should donate some more money and more money. And then it's, oh, well, you should have your family come. And now it's gotten to the point where like cult meetings happen to take place on every major holiday. And it's like, well, if you don't come, then like you need to be working on yourself. And if somebody's not supporting you, then they're the problem and they don't want you to be the best you can be. So it's really hard. And so my mom looked into it and was trying to reason with these family members. And she was like, the worst thing is the cult has, so my mom has a background in psychology. And so she's like, this cult has like elements of like CBT and mindfulness and like all the same things. So she's like, of course they feel good after they go to these like cult meetings. She's like, they're basically having like psychological interventions. And she's like, just go to therapy. Like if you need help and you want to feel good, like you just need a therapist. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard. It's sad. And from like watching your family go through that, you feel powerless. Especially when there's money at stake too, because you wonder like, well, what are you saying to like get their money and like what's going on in the background?
Yeah. And I think one really sort of interesting component is that I've probably mentioned this before because I think about this quite a lot, but David Graeber, RIP, in Bullshit Jobs, talk about there's like a systemic lack of agency in our society because many of us work bullshit jobs who don't get to do much. But psychologically, as humans, we have like a joy of being the cause, which is like you as a toddler learn that, you know, if I knock this thing over a table, it'll break, and like I did that, that's fucking rad. And like that kind of can explain, you know, sort of a sense of meaning in our lives. We want to feel responsible for things that we did them. And a lot of the rhetoric you hear in NXIVM is about changing the world. That's what you're saying about Nippy. Like he wants to change the world. He wants to be a force for good.
He wants to be ethical.
But also it like puts in all these little steps for you to sort of get that high of feeling accomplished, whether it's like getting your next sash, your new color. You know, it's very sort of concrete, achievable goals that don't exist at a lot of people's jobs. Like you can work your ass off for 3 years and maybe you won't get a raise. But like if I recruit this many people and take this many classes, like I know I will get to the next level and get this fucking sash. And so like I get it. And at the same time, the Dream talks about this too. Like MLMs in general also appeal to this because MLMs are often done by like a lot of women who like aren't given, you know, economic opportunities outside the home, or economic opportunities aren't available to them. Basically, there's just like a lot of housewives who feel unfulfilled because they're not being the cause or whatever. And so to become an entrepreneur, to become a business leader, it's just like an easy recipe for people to get sucked into these horrible, horrible things.
Yeah, and it does. I quickly looked at the chat and I saw someone bring up improv classes. But when I watch the balance of, yeah, I do think about like improv classes and like CrossFit and these things we do have that are more like culturally appropriate and we don't think of as cults that do have similar dynamics, whether it's like in CrossFit, you get to a certain level to become a trainer. I know a lot of, you know, improv and comedy theaters and like acting schools. It's like you get to this level and you get this perk at this level, but the whole way you're just giving more and more money. So I think the vow stuff and NXIVM is scary. What might be scarier too sometimes is how the MLM logic trickles into things that are considered more normative. And I would say, you know, you brought up jobs, Alec. I think in general that logic doesn't play into jobs, but having recently I read a book about Silicon Valley culture, and you definitely see some of it there. The sort of the psychological elements of cults being used to enforce this like your job is your life and your purpose culture.
Yeah, I forgot if it was Jeff Bezos, but something like someone raised something about work-life balance, and they're like, listen, if you can't work, 18 hours a day, like that's on you. You don't belong here. And I think it's very much like something Keith Raniere would say. Sorry, Serby, go ahead.
So I work in the tech industry and startups, and that's very much like, it does feel like a cult a lot of times. And one prevailing thought is like, well, our culture is our culture, and if you can't adapt to it, then it'll just weed out the weak.
Yeah.
And so the awful thing about that is there's so much pressure, because you're like, well, I have to go to the after work event, or I have to work on the weekends, or I have to do this, I have to do that, because if I don't, then I'm not the one that gets the promotion, or I'm not the one that gets moved up. It does feel like a cult. And when I always find a new job, I always ask a lot of questions about the culture, because that is the most important thing. Like, cults come in all forms, and it's like working at a job, you stop thinking about it as a cult. You start to think about it as like, oh, well, this is just the culture, and I need to adapt, and these are our values. Yeah.
The volleyball and stuff in the vow really reminded me of, and I know I've said this before too, I was an RA in college, but RA training was all about like building community, and being an RA is not a cult, but like every time I see a group of adults playing volleyball or like doing team building exercises, I think about that, and now I will forever think about like Keith Raniere building a sex cult. But same thing, like, we've never really done this at Wisecrack, but you go to some like company retreat to build it, and I'm not saying that's cultish, but I think there's a uncanniness that bothers me.
Most definitely. And I think, the main takeaway from all of this is any organization that requires you to play volleyball from 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. is not your friend. So now that we know how to avoid cults, and we don't find community there, I think we might need to talk about how we can find community in the loving embrace of another. So we've talked a lot about COVID and how it's affected our culture. We haven't really talked about dating much yet. So Serby, get us into the particular problems and possibilities of dating during COVID.
Yes. So lockdown dating. I've been talking to a few friends who are going on dates during this pandemic, and it's so interesting. They're meeting at parks and other public spaces or open spaces. And one of my friends made an interesting observation. She said that by wearing a mask and having some physical distance from her dates, it makes her anticipate seeing the guys more, and she's really excited about like a first kiss, or when she sees the guy without a mask, she's sort of like, oh wow. She's like, these little things feel so thrilling. And after hearing these experiences, I've started to reflect on my experience with online dating that I did years and years ago, and I always felt like it was so impersonal, and it was just a series of swipes, and judgments were made in a flash. And it's so easy to get caught up in how someone looks, or what their job is, or how funny their bio is. And you stop really seeing the person, and you just start to see like what are the little facts about them. And through conversations with others who have done online dating, I realized that people felt like there were so many options available, and it was hard to settle on one person, because their thought was like, oh, well, there could be a better match tomorrow, or maybe if I just swiped a little bit more, then I could find someone who's smarter or prettier or funnier. So my experience with online dating was horrible, and it felt like every guy I went out with either wanted to like pass the time, like just chatting on the app because they were bored, or they wanted to hook up right away, and they didn't want anything serious. So there seemed to be like this rush, like a rush to meet, a rush to kiss, a rush to hook up. And I hated that. I wanted things to slow down. And so now with the pandemic, I've heard that things are slowing way down, because people are more selective with who they meet in person, and they're taking their time getting to know others over text or a phone call or Zoom first. And they've even slowed down with physical intimacy because they don't want to catch COVID. And one guy I spoke to said that he was dating a girl for a month before they kissed. And he's like, I haven't waited a month before kissing someone since high school. So he said that it felt kind of special. Like it felt more meaningful to him. And the kiss felt more intense to him. So I'm wondering whether the pandemic will changed the dating landscape in the same way that apps and websites did a couple decades ago? Like, will we start to see relationships have a slower burn and involve people taking their time getting to know each other? And I'm curious because it feels like the sort of thing that everybody's going through all at the same time. So maybe we might start to value different things, and not look. I mean, I think we'll still look at looks and things like that, but maybe relationships might be stronger because there was more of an emphasis on getting to know each other before you do other things. So I know both of you are in relationships, and I think one of you hasn't done online dating, but I'm curious about your thoughts.
I think that guy. Well, can I ask one question of clarification? I just don't know if your friends got into this. When they are COVID distance dating before the kiss, are they getting like tested? Or at this point, are you just like, fuck it, we've been safe, why not?
So a couple of them do insist on getting a COVID test done. And a few of them are like, well, if we've talked about it and they're, working from home and not doing anything, then we'll just kiss each other. But they're like, it really depends on the person. And if I feel like there's a lot of trust and respect there.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine kissing a stranger. I mean, even if I've known them for a month, and like, even like, I've seen my family in person once outside. I don't even hug them, and so like to fucking kiss, to like swap saliva fluid with like a person I've known for a month, like, and I'm not hating on it. I'm not like, I get it. People need to do these things, but it scares me. I don't like it.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't do it. I think I've gone from being what I thought was normative COVID conscious, but I feel like a lot of other people around me have chilled out, so now I look more extreme by comparison. But if I was single, I don't know, I might like be on dating apps because I'd be lonely and I might want to like meet people and talk to them, but I can't see me wanting to do anything more than like maybe go on some walks with masks and kind of like take it a little bit easy in that way. But I get it. And like one of my best friends is currently, if I can speak about them, COVID dating and navigating that. And I feel for them. But it just sounds weird. And I have heard about like the flip side of this too, of like COVID sex hookups. So I've seen people talk about this on Twitter, of people just like straight up hooking up and like wearing masks as they have sex. I even saw someone talking about they were going to meet a hookup like in someone's backyard so they could like bang it out on a deck. So it would be safer. And like, I guess shouts for being safe there.
Yes.
But I wonder one thing, Serby, in relation to what you said about this changing dating culture. Do we think that if this ever ends, knock on wood, do we think this could lead back to people wanting more like organic in-person dating? Will this create more of a desire to get back to like meeting people out and meeting people through friends and being more organic? Or is this going to push us even more into dating as Matrix-esque activity?
I think it might be a push to meet more organically because our whole lives are online now. Mm-hmm. A lot of people work from home. We order our groceries online. We do everything online. Our doctor's appointments are online. So I think like for me, the last thing I want to do is do another thing online. So I think people might be more interested in going out and like doing things and trying to meet people that way.
I do know Serby has to grab her charger, but there is one comment that I want to address. It says, Alec is weird. No offense taken. I'm a weird dude. Wow. Do these millennials not have casual, safe sex? I will just say that I'm terrified of all people, their germs and other things, and bodily fluids. And so I'm just like, isn't there a word for this? Like a wife guy? No.
You're a wife guy. Yeah. No,
yeah. I've been in a relationship for 8 or 9 or 10 years. I don't fucking know. But like, if I had to meet strangers on the internet and then like proceed to figure out like how to hook, there would just be a lot of hurdles to get over versus like, oh, I met this person in college and we've known each other for a couple of months and now are dating. But I'm a fucking weirdo.
I'm not a freak like Alec. I used to be a normal person that met people and had consensual sex or whatever it might be. I've just been in a relationship for a while, so I'm not on dating apps because we're stuck in the same apartment, and if my partner looked over and saw me on a dating app, things would get very uncomfortable. Yeah. Although once I did, as a bit during dinner with my partner and friends, make a dating app account and started getting matches because they thought I was kidding. And then I turned my phone over and showed my matches, and it made the dinner awkward, and we had to have a talk afterwards. So, be careful at Universal Studios and don't sign up for a dating app as a bit in front of your partner. But Serby, back to you and your powered up computer. But no, I think the point you make about the change back to organic culture is interesting, because I think about how 5 months ago it was like, hey guys, let's have Zoom happy hour. And now, like, I would rather slam my fucking foot in a door than do another goddamn Zoom hangout. And like at this point, I'm just like, I'll wait a year and see you in person at this point than do more Zoom socialization, because it does feel kind of hollow. So yeah, I wonder if like that, dating is going to become this thing we do more in person than we have been.
I also just wonder, I think I have no moral, like, hookup culture is fine. I have no problems with it. People can, do whatever they want. But I do feel like this is one of those things that might like ebb and flow. Like there will be a sort of reaction to it where people are like, I'm sick of this. Like I would rather, sort of to what Serby's saying, like there's something nice about knowing someone for a month and then waiting to kiss them. Again, no moral judgments about either, but I feel like both cultures have their pros and cons. One, lots of sex. The other one, like getting to know people.
So I'm very excited about this whole so I'm not dating and I don't plan to anytime soon, but I'm very excited about this like taking time to get to know people, because I've always found it very strange, like wanting to sleep with someone like I just couldn't do it. Sleeping with somebody I've only known for like a week or something. It just feels so personal, or like kissing them. And so I got really good at like this ninja dodge, like where guys would try to hug me but like go in for the kiss, and I'd be like, oh fuck no.
Oh no.
It was kind of like a dab but without dabbing, like the dab motion of your body. It was very attractive. And I like the idea of being like, no, I don't want to do anything. Also, I always insist on an STD test before sleeping with somebody. And so now I get to insist on a COVID and an STD test.
Nice.
That's not unreasonable if you're in a relationship. Test them up, guys. Yeah, and I do, and this is just like, we'll get into this later in the show, but if you're currently COVID dating, we would love to hear about it. You can get in touch with us, culturebinge@wisecrack.co. Tell us all about it. We'll keep it anonymous. Really get into it. We want to hear.
I think it's time to talk about how boomers ruin the world. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, a little bit. So, okay, so I'll start with this. There's a book that came out, and I think it literally came out yesterday or the day before, because I had it pre-ordered, and my local bookstore emailed me and said, it's time.
What kind of psycho pre-orders books, first of all?
I don't know, maybe a psycho trying to support his local independent bookstore during a pandemic.
Wow.
I don't know, maybe that. But yeah, Alec Bezos over here. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But enough about me being a nerd with books. But this author, Anne Helen Peterson, has a book that just came out. It's called Can't Even: How Millennials Became the Burnout Generation. And she's doing a lot of interviews, and there's a lot of articles about the book coming out this week. And there's one in particular that dropped in The Atlantic, just to use cool terms to talk about Atlantic articles. It's called How Boomer Parenting Fueled Millennial Burnout. And it's pretty interesting, and it sucks to read if you're someone that is a millennial and grew up with boomer parents. And so I think 2 chapters of the book deal with parenting. On one side, how millennials were parented, and on the other side, how millennials are parenting. To skip to the conclusion of it, millennials are parenting real badly because they're just taking what their parents did to them and accelerating it, which is horrifying. But she describes in this interview 2 problems to millennial parenting. Or sorry, the way millennials were parented. One she says is, the first is conceiving of children as mini adults, trying to cultivate behaviors, postures, and skills that are associated with adults, like being able to carry on conversations with adults or advocating for themselves when they feel something is unfair. So, one thing she thinks boomers did is try to make kids mini adults. The second is thinking of childhood as a means to an end. And that end, of course, is getting into a good college. And I don't know about you all, but I know from a very young age, I was aware that there was a thing called college, and that every part of my life was somehow aimed at this thing called college. And all I knew about college is what I saw from Saved by the Bell, the college years. So it did seem kind of fun at that point. Now, the sort of larger sort of explanation she gives for boomer parenting is actually economic anxiety. So this idea that In the 70s and 80s, things went well for a lot of boomer parents and they were making money. But as things started to kind of turn down a little bit at the tail end of the boomer generation, parents were so anxious about their children not achieving a level of success or wealth that they had, that they felt like they needed to go real ham, basically, to do this. Now, a lot of what goes on in her research and book, and I think this author is really interesting as well, maybe on a personal level, because this is someone that went and did a PhD in cultural studies, wanted to be an academic, got burned out on the academic job market, started writing for internet publications, and then wrote this book about millennial burnout. So I love the academia to internet pipeline.
The Michael Burns pipeline.
Yeah, the Michael Burns pipeline. And then but she did something that I still haven't done, which is move to Montana with her dogs, which is the dream, to live in Montana with dogs and just hang out. Someone in Montana, build a compound for Wisecrack. Okay, so last thing I'll say from this. So she brings up this idea, and here's a quote from the author, Ann Helen Peterson. She says, "One of the saddest things I heard when talking to many millennials is that when they reach a point of exhaustion with work, lift their heads up and look around them, they're like, what else is there? Do I have a personality? Do I know what I like? There's no there other than their ability to work." And I think that's really difficult. So basic gist, boomers full of economic anxiety, obsessed with their children being safe in economic terms, project mini adulthood and all this pressure onto kids. The kids grow up and, for lack of a better term, they have zero chill, they can't relax, and they're burned out all the fucking time. And, if you want to look up her original article she wrote, it was a BuzzFeed piece that was called something like Millennials and the Burnout Generation. I sent it to a good friend this morning, and he got part of the way through before he said he started having an anxiety attack. So be careful if you read that. But I know, what do y'all think? And I don't want to, ask anyone to be too forthcoming in their own anecdotes from childhood, but do we think, or did we have experiences in which we think the boomers did this to us?
Serby.
So I grew up knowing about college and knowing that I had to go to college. And then when I was in college, my mom's like, I really wish I hadn't pushed you to go to college, because maybe that wasn't what was right for you. Mm-hmm. And so now we have pretty extensive conversations about that, like how she grew up thinking about education. I think it could be a cultural thing as well. Like in the Indian culture, there's a great emphasis on education. But she and I were saying that when I have kids, I'm not going to make college the only option for them. I want them to know that they can do other things if that's what's right for them, because maybe a formal college experience isn't what they need, but maybe they want to go to art school, or maybe they don't want to go to school and they just want to start working or start their own business, or I don't know, bum around Europe for a couple of years. So I do think that college was good for me. I don't think that I would have gone to college right when I was 18. I probably would have taken a couple years off and traveled or worked or something and then gone to school afterwards. I am burnt out, but not because of the way I was raised. I think it's more just a personality thing, and then also just the places I've chosen to work encourage burnout.
Yeah.
I was grown up with it wasn't even a pressure. It was just people go to college. If you don't go to college, that's not something people do. Or and to a sense, I think there is, not that I think this is a good thing, but there's a certain sense of fairness to that, in that the way our economy is set up right now, and it's probably bad, is for any bullshit job, you need a college degree, which is not actually true, but that's hiring. So basically, unless you want to work in a trade, which, to be honest, make much more money and probably are a lot more fulfilling than I'll have the sort of
better benefits.
I'm a marketing assistant at some ad agency, it's college or a trade. And so, but I never had the you need to get into Harvard, you need to go to that. I did go to a college that was well known for being where people went to if they got rejected from NYU. So I know lots of people like that. But yeah, I think I'm weird. I don't think there was that sort of pressure there for me, but I think I did have sort of grand ambitions, but no idea how to realize them. Nobody, at one time I was I want to be an astrophysicist. And I had no idea what that meant. I knew that space was cool and I like science classes, but no one was okay, well, you have to get a PhD and then you do this and that and that. There was no sense of that. But I think on the burnout front for me, this is maybe not helpful to a lot of people listening. Like, I don't necessarily feel burned out by my career, but if there is a source of burnout, it is the YouTube algorithm, and I will leave it at that.
I have to say the most important revelation of this podcast thus far, Alec, is that I too wanted to be an astrophysicist when I was young, and I too had no one to show me how, and I was obsessed with it. And I think I like emailed some professor at U Chicago when I was like 12 and had my first email address to be like, how can I become an astrophysicist?
Yeah.
But no, so I think we seem to all have something in common where maybe we didn't have the traditional like boomer parenting vibe because, and this isn't like a dark thing, it just is what it is. Like I didn't have like particularly good or involved parents. So I didn't have a lot of like pressure from them, but I still had general societal pressure, stuff that was talked about in school, stuff that you saw. And I think even if you don't have parents pushing you to do that, it's culturally normative. Like you said, it's like, well, what do you do when you finish high school? You go to college. And I think often the narrative when you're young is if you don't go to college, your life is over, you're screwed. And there was a point where when I was finishing high school, I didn't know if I wanted to go to college. I was playing music in some bands and I really liked it. And yeah, and I was like, oh, maybe rather than go to college and commit all that money right now, I'll take some classes at like a community college that cost almost nothing, play music, and just like see how it goes for a couple of years. And when I look back, like I think that would have been a totally reasonable option. It would have cost less money in the long run. There's nothing wrong there, but to my parents and then people I brought that up to, you would have thought I said to them like, yeah, I met this guy named Keith Raniere online. He bought me a bus ticket to Albany. I'm psyched about it. Like, and I think that, yeah, I think we've created a culture that is sort of presupposing an economic paradigm that might not exist anymore, which is that a certain version of like Reagan era successful capitalism or something. And I think that is problematic. And I think one of the bummer parts about, you know, the interview that inspired talking about this and Peterson's book as a whole is there's not a lot of solutions because whenever she's pressed on that, it's basically like, well, the system is what the system is. It's very hard to opt out of it. And some of her only hope was seeing some Gen Z people rebel against it and sort of see through the bullshit of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. I think that is very true. I think we do need to move on to the mailbag, though, because I know...
Let's get into the mailbag. I love the mailbag. It's my favorite place. So before we get into it, just a quick reminder, we love to hear from you more than anything about whatever. And I think especially this time, too, if you've been in a cult, let us know. If you're dating during COVID, let us know. If you feel burned out, let us know. And in all of those cases, you can remain anonymous if you want. So hit us up at culturebinge@wisecrack.co. No M. Culturebinge@wisecrack.co or call us at 213-534-8807. That is 213-534-8807. Alec, what do we got this time?
We've got a great voicemail that I've specifically instructed neither of you to listen to. And so,
yes, I'm very
Joy,
nervous.
let's play that.
Hi, this is Rob. I'm calling about your Culture Binge on OnlyFans and the controversies around it, but not specifically about Bella Thorne messing it up. The main issue for me, and it touches on the idea of legalizing broader sex work, it really just circles around buttholes. I mean, have you ever been on Twitter, Discord, Reddit? It's insane the amount of just random buttholes with OnlyFans links you'll find. If you look up any trending tag and search out far enough, it's just buttholes. Reddit new posts, buttholes. You can't escape them. I feel like Vin Diesel and Pitch Black. I light the flare, and they all recoil backwards. In fact, OnlyFans has ruined them for me completely. Imagine that you're me. You're a good person. You hate your job. You socially distance. You wash your hands. And you think, oh, well, I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to go look at butts on the internet. Not now. Now I think to myself, I want to check Twitter for a little bit. I hope I don't see a flurry of anuses. And sure enough, I do. I saw today while looking up 9/11 remembrance posts, an OnlyFans girl doing a deal for $9.11 and a promise to donate a portion to widows or something. So they've taint for me. Now I have a world-weary feeling or a proctologist must feel when the next patient comes in.
Tainted taints for him. Thank you, Ron.
Is this Rob?
Ron, thank you so much.
Ron, oh my God, the 9/11 thing did it for me.
Leave us messages
Every week.
every week.
The only thing that I don't like about this is I did get like a weird mean DM from someone that watches Wisecrack stuff saying that like I can't talk out of my butthole. So I hope it wasn't this person, because the person who sent me the cyberbully DM was a dick, and this person sounds incredible. So I hope you're not the same. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you, Ron.
That was amazing. That was wonderful.
I mean, maybe in the philosophy of Keith Raniere, you're the problem, not the buttholes. You can't control the buttholes. You can only control your reaction to them. Why don't we do a deep EM of your version of buttholes?
He just wants to do things in his life, and there's buttholes at every which corner. That's rough.
All right. We've got 2 emails to go into. Again, it's culturebinge@wisecrack.co. Serby, if you need to leave, I understand. We love you very dearly.
Yes. If you don't hear Serby's voice anymore, it's not because we killed her. It's because she had to go do her important job.
Yeah.
Yes. Looking at buttholes. Bye, everyone.
Bye. She's the quality assurance person for
buttholes.
OnlyFans butthole tags.
Best job ever.
You know what else is a great meme? Cat buttholes. I'll just leave it at that.
Ew. I don't know. I'm mad that I know what that is now. Okay, well, we got in emails.
All right, we got an email from Anthony, longtime listener and watcher of your fabulous content, getting caught up on the Culture Binge podcast, and I wanted to let you know that digital advertising is way creepier than you think. I used to sell radio and digital advertising pre-COVID in an office space style move. I'm now working for my city, picking up litter downtown all day. Sounds very fulfilling. It is glorious. To the point, though, everything you do online and offline contributes to your digital advertising profile. Everything you do puts you into a category. Even if you're not surfing the web, every time your phone pings a tower, Google gets your location information and tailors ads based on where you go, and more immediately, where you're at. Geofencing is what everyone knows about and thinks is the hotness. Basically, it's a digital fence around an event or business. Everyone that enters that digital fence has a cookie dropped on their phone and then serves them the ad. The cookie then follows them back to your home residence, which is determined by where you're at from 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. each day. It then sends ads to your neighbors because the algorithm reasons that we live near people who are like us and are likely to have similar interest. There are literally tens of thousands of specific advertising content categories to get the right message to the right person, most likely to engage with the message and take whatever action the ad wants you to take.
I hate it.
Yeah. I meant to look into this more, but there is one thing that, so your medical information is protected by a law called HIPAA. And so, like, if you're a hospital, you can't sell patient records to some advertiser, which I'm not sure is exactly what happened. But I remember visiting someone in a cancer ward and then getting targeted ads for, like, different cancer centers, which, again, like, maybe they were able to, like, geo-target me because they know it's there and the hospital had no affiliation. Maybe because I wasn't a patient and signed in, the hospital sent that email there. But I think it's weird. Like, I mean, I know Facebook got in trouble because they were serving ads to people based on like their presumed HIV status, which, like, you know, that's a thing that a lot of people like to keep private. And, you know, if someone's looking over your shoulder and sees like, need some HIV medication, like that's not cool. That's my story.
Have I told you the depression and online advertising anecdote I've told a few times?
No.
Okay. So I worked, at a tech-ish company, and, someone who worked there had come from working for like digital analytics and marketing someplace, and she was telling me and a colleague who were on like the creative side of this company, she was like, you know, we can track through someone's online behaviors if they're considering suicide or if they're like deeply depressed.
Yeah.
Our response was, oh my God, well, that's great. You can like reach out or give them help. And she laughed, and we were like, why are you laughing? And she said, or they said, or he said, shit, now someone might know who I'm talking about. But she said, she was like, oh no, boys. She was like, that's cute. She was like, we know this because people who are considering killing themselves are more likely to make reckless economic purchases. So we target them for like bigger things they might want to buy or something like that.
Yeah, there was a great article also about like credit card data. Like, one easy way to tell if someone's depressed is if they are not leaving a certain like if they're staying inside all day, which I know literally everyone's doing. But if you're not leaving the house, your credit card purchases can reflect that, and your phone information can. And so, like, reckless economic purchases like you're suggesting, or even like, hey, maybe you want like Burger King delivered to your house.
And quickly before the next email, I do want to give a shout out to upcoming birthday boy Dude Abides, 1985, who's just a staple of the show. It's his birthday's coming up. He's enjoying a banh mi sandwich today. We're always psyched to have him around.
Also, Cracked Pince Nez. Stay beautiful, everyone. I appreciate being called beautiful. Nobody ever does.
That's incredible. Yeah. We got any other emails this time around?
Yeah, we got one last email from Hobby that I feel very attacked for. I'm just kidding, Hobby. I really like this email. Hi, Wisecrack. I love your podcast. I was a little behind in listening, and I just came across one when Alec talks about his love for outdoors and hiking. It's true. I like those things. I guess this is random, but this oddly connects to a local issue of mine. A native of upstate New York, when the pandemic hit and Governor Cuomo shut the whole state down, my small community in the Catskills buckled down and braced for the worst, and it came, but not in COVID. What happened instead, as we all stopped going outside, residents of New York City, a giant hotspot, I should clarify at the time, began to use local mountains as hiking spots. Now, this isn't unusual, but the amount we saw was especially I guess bad, considering the fact that our global pandemic was happening and we were all supposed to stay in our homes. Frankly, to my community, it felt like people from New York City ignored the rules and traveled hours away, literally spreading the pandemic to my small town. New York City people aren't well liked in general in the Catskills. Almost 100% of the locals hate them, and that situation has not gotten better as it feels like they don't care. Bear in mind, this influx started in March, and in April, during the worst part of the pandemic, has only increased. I can appreciate that the great outdoors is very therapeutic, but is a health risk to me, my family, and friends as out-of-towners invade our space. This is a long way of asking, how do you balance your own mental health with the well-being of the community you are visiting? I am being personally called out. No, I think it's really interesting because I think there's like two time frames, and I should say that I literally went upstate like a week ago, and I will explain that. But I think there's like early pandemic where New York is the hot spot. New Yorkers are doing lots of things that are very shitty, like going to other states and spreading it to their family members and seeing places like Florida with COVID cases because they have the money and they can, and people don't think about shit, and those people are the worst. Similarly, like going upstate, God knows, like, are they wearing masks? Are they stopping in gas stations? Are they eating in restaurants? Are restaurants shut down? Are they just coughing on people? Who knows? And I'll say, like, I think the early on people, I think not a lot was known, and I think I definitely like be on the side of caution. Like, I don't leave my apartment for weeks at a time. Now, then I'm juxtaposing that with now in New York, things are under control. We have like a slightly better sense of like safety risk and things like that. If you're wearing a mask, if you're outside, it's very low risk, not zero risk, but low risk. And so, I'm going on more walks. I'm going upstate and hiking. I'm putting on a mask when I see people, even, sometimes they'll be within 6 feet. I feel like New York now is a very low, has a very low positivity rate and a very low case rate per 100,000. I'm not, I call me out, anyone on the internet. I feel like I'm not adding some unique risk, but at the same time, the people doing that in March and April when we didn't know those things, or maybe were less certain about them, those people kind of suck. So I'm sorry that they maybe gave COVID to your small town.
Yeah, that sounds very relatable. I get that. I know the one time I've traveled anywhere was technically upstate because it was up the state of California, but I know that's not what we call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know when I stayed someplace kind of rural, and I like did all my shopping here. When I went up, I didn't really, I just kind of like felt like I wanted to honor the locals of this smaller and less COVID infected town by not going anywhere near them.
Yeah.
And enjoying outdoor spaces alone, and not like, because I imagine the people that are the biggest dicks are the ones that like show up places, want to like eat out, take their mask off, just be like all types of involved rather than laying low. Yeah. So don't be a dick if you travel.
Yeah. And I think it was interesting because on the trail, I was like, oh, wow, everyone's like putting on a mask when they walk by me. And then there's like a trail registry and like everyone's from Brooklyn. And sometimes people wouldn't, and they'd do weird things like, put their hand over their mouth. I'm like, that's not how that works. Maybe it helps a little bit. But I think the other thing is, parks are cool and they should be for everyone, not necessarily spreading the disease of COVID, everyone. But, the more people that use the trails, the better it is to maintain those trails, to get funding.
Yeah. Just be cool about it. Just wear a mask. Don't be a jerk. Make other people feel safe, even if you don't need that yourself,
For other outdoorsy people, maybe in other places, I'm curious because I want to know how to not be that guy from Brooklyn who ruins everything. Maybe I am.
Alec is fully that guy from Brooklyn. So that's all we have for emails, right?
Yeah, that's all we have.
Awesome. Well, give us more for the next time around. You have a couple weeks to get on it. Once again, you can email us at culturebinge@wisecrack.co. Call us at 213-534-8807. We always say this, and it's not bullshit. We love to hear from you. We love to know what's going on. Love to know what you think, even if it's negative.
Yeah.
I'm not too negative. We're sensitive humans. So before I wrap up, we will be back in a couple weeks for you. Alec, if in the intervening weeks people need your hot takes, where can they find them?
Oh, my hot takes are on Wisecrack Alec. There are several hot takes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you can find me at Michael O'Burns on Twitter. I think something similar on Instagram. If you're bored, I'm doing a philosophy book club Twitch thing on Fridays. Dude Abides has been showing up, so I gotta give another shout out. But you can check that out. I'll post a link and stuff like that. And if there's nothing else to be said, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching if you're hanging out now, and we will catch you in a couple weeks. Later, guys.
Bye.